the 1950s. British bikes are ruling the roads for performance and sales, and the Chelsea Bridge boys are running around and creating merry hell, and motorcycle films start being produced. The subculture is starting to flourish. Fast forward to the summer of 1964, and the mods and rockers make their way into my hometown of Hastings. I wasn't born yet, and my dad was still a child. The term rocker doesn't actually come from the musical influence, but in fact refers to the rockers on the top of the motorcycle engines, as opposed to their mod counterparts that rode two-stroke engines. After only a short period of time, a fight breaks out between the two groups. You see, the English do like a good fight, and whether it be football fans or mods and rockers, sometimes we do have to beat each other up. Not that I condone this behaviour, I certainly do not. They didn't really like each other at that point, but it turns out that all these years later, many decades later, they still roll into my hometown of Hastings. But now they all eat ice cream and just look at bikes. The violence doesn't occur anymore. I believe the mutual love of everything two wheels keeps everyone calm. The film Quadrophenia shows this historical battle, although they use Brighton as the showground. Typical film companies change history to suit their needs. And yes, before any of you comment, I do know that an incident happened in Brighton not long after the one in Hastings, but it was the one in Hastings that made all the national newspapers and that everyone read about. Nonetheless, the mods and rocker scene was a real big part of British motorcycle culture. They modified their 50s, 60s Triumphs, BSAs and Nortons, and the mods modified their Vespas and Lambrettas. They would find transport cafes and race them up and down the roads, the Ace Cafe being the most famous of all of them, looking to achieve that prestigious 100 miles an hour to become a ton-up boy. They would put a record on the jukebox and jump on their tricked-out bikes. They'd race down to the roundabout at the bottom of the North Circular and thundered back again, all in the hope that they had beaten the record and the other rider. All this was done just to be able to boast that you are the fastest. They closed the Ace Cafe in the 1970s. I believe it was due to the huge number of accidents motorcycles were having and the number of fatalities. It's reopened now for tea and breakfast, and it's a great place to go. They hold many events all based around the car and motorcycle culture, and they have all sorts of events well worth looking at their website. Meanwhile, the mods with their Vespas covered in mirrors and lights are chasing girls in miniskirts. It really set the tone for that period of British motorcycle history. The decade is the 1970s, and pop culture has boomed into bright colours and acid tabs. Uncle Bunt choppers are being built with long front ends and coffin tanks. In truth, this was a subculture that was derived from films like Easy Rider, and the choppers were not really English, but definitely an American influence. It is to be expected that it would bleed into English motorcycle culture, because during the mid-1960s, American motorcycle culture began to influence the English. The 1% motorcycle clubs began to create charters here. American films like Easy Rider found themselves being shown in cinemas. Easy Rider magazine could be purchased in local paper shops. We the British even started to produce our own custom motorcycle magazines like Backstreet Heroes. I can in fact still remember my first ever Backstreet Heroes magazine. I would have been about 7 or 8 years old, and we lived in a council estate called Linley Drive, and the local paper shop, which was a Spar, was at the top of Hosewood Road. On this particular sunny day, my mother and me made our way to the shop, where she unusually asked if I'd like a magazine. I pondered those glossy books for ages, and as she approached the till, I gave her my first Backstreet Heroes magazine. My mum opened the centre page to see a half-naked woman on a chopper. She said, "This isn't appropriate for you." Anyway, I pleaded for the magazine, and like a lot of mums, she purchased it for me and removed the nudity. That was me hooked from then. I bought that magazine every time that I could afford to, or when I went to the shop with my nanny, I'd ask my nanny to buy it for me, and I read many editions of that, seeing all the different bikes. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. During the 1970s, something really drastic happened. That was a Japanese company called Honda, who releases a motorcycle that would change not only British motorcycle culture, but the whole world's. That motorcycle was the Honda CB750 Inline 4. Not only was it fast, but it was more reliable than the British motorcycles. Mainly because poor management and union strikes had all but destroyed the reputation and quality control of new bikes. Triumph did try to compete with this, with its new triple, the Trident, but in truth it was too little, too late. They produced that up until the early 1980s when the doors were finally closed and the receivers walked in. On the contrary to popular belief though, Triumph carried on producing bikes under licence. Thank you for watching, and please continue to leave comments with your experiences and knowledge. I do very much enjoy reading them and responding. Also, if any of you have any motorcycle related stories you would like to share, I'd love to have you on. The beauty of this culture is each of us has different experiences, and sharing those is definitely something to behold.